Hey the physics students, welcome to Educate. In this video we will be doing a rectilinear motion under a constant force. So you must have learned this from your first year and your previous physics modules that the force is equals to the mass multiplied by the acceleration, which is the Newton's second law of motion. Now we just want to turn everything into mathematical terms, and we want to be able to derive the equations of motion using integral and using the Newtonian mechanics notation. So first of all, remember that we need to be able to define the position, the velocity, and the acceleration of an object with respect to a certain reference frame. So most of the times, the reference frame that we use, it is the x position. So basically, when we're talking about position, we will use the symbol x to represent it. So this symbol represents the position of a particle in a certain space of time. So whenever you hear me saying that x is equals to 3, I'm trying to say that a particular particle or a certain object, it is 3 units to the right of the x-axis, or 3 units in the positive x direction. So basically x will represent our position. And we need to remember one more thing that you have learned in first year, that the velocity, the average velocity, it is the rate of change of position with respect to time, or basically it's the rate of change of position. So basically we can say that for me to find velocity in calculus terms, the rate of change is the same thing as saying the derivative. So whenever you hear me saying rate of change, this is the same thing as saying the derivative. So basically, we are turning everything into mathematics. Remember that when we define a velocity in physics terms, we say it is the rate of change of position. We want to see how fast the position of something is changing. For example, this dust that was here, but now it is changing its position in a certain amount of time, right? But now, when we are using calculus terms to describe that, instead of saying rate of change, we're going to replace that with what? Derivative. So hence we say that the velocity, it is the derivative of position with respect to time. So here, remember that the position is x, right? So the velocity will be the derivative of x, which is the position with respect to time. So now the thing is, instead of writing the velocity as v, we usually prefer to write it using x, because x is our reference frame for all of these videos that I'm gonna make on second year physics. X is our reference frame. So basically, instead of writing velocity as just v, we won't use v, we will use dx over dt. Remember that when you're having dx dt like this, this is the first derivative of position. So we can write this using the Newtonian way and say this is x with a dot on top. So whenever you see x with a dot on top, that is the first derivative of position with respect to time in this case. Okay, so that dot simply means first derivative. If I've got 2 dots on top, it means I've derived this position 2 times. So instead of writing velocity, I write position with a dot on top to say that velocity, it is the first derivative of position. So the notation for velocity will be x with a dot on top. This will be representing the velocity of that particle. And then we need to remember one more time the acceleration, that the acceleration, it is the rate of change of velocity, right? Is the rate of change of velocity. So the rate of change, remember, we replace it with just the derivative. So basically, when we're talking about the acceleration, we are talking about the rate of change of position, or the rate of change of velocity, I mean. So basically, when we are deriving the velocity here, remember that instead of writing v, we say that we are going to represent the notation using x with a dot on top. Okay, instead of writing velocity as v, as velocity vector, we represent it using what? Using x with a dot on top. Basically meaning that this is the first derivative of position. So instead of writing v, I'm going to write x with a dot on top. So basically acceleration, it is the derivative of x dot with respect to time. And basically when I'm deriving x dot, now I'm deriving for the second time. Remember, it was x at first, it was position, and I derived it with respect to time. It now became x with a dot on top, whereby the dot is representing deriving once. So here I'm deriving position for the second time. So this will be x with 2 dots on top. So we say acceleration, it is the second derivative of position. We are talking everything with respect to position, okay? Because basically we start with position, we derive it, we find velocity. So velocity, we're going to say, is the first derivative of position. Then we derive the first derivative of position. That will give us acceleration, which is the second derivative of position. So instead of writing a, we're going to write x with the 2 dots. So this is going to be x double dot. So x double dot will represent our acceleration. So we can redefine the Newton's second law using these new mathematical quantities from our Newtonian mechanics. So basically, instead of writing that the force or the net force is equals to mass times acceleration, I'm going to say that the force as a function of x dot, and x dot in time is equals to the mass times x double dot. This is still the same Newton's second law that you know, but we just represented it using the quantities, these new Newtonian quantities, okay? So basically here, this is the force. So the force here in this case, it is the function of position. It is the function of position, is the function of velocity. Remember that x dot is velocity, right? And it is also a function of time. So it means that force changes as position changes, force changes as the velocity changes as well, and then it also changes as time changes. Then this, instead of writing acceleration, we wrote x with a double dot on top. That's x double dot. So knowing this, we can be able to derive our equations of motion if we're having rectilinear motion. Remember that we can only use the equations of motion provided that the acceleration is constant. So basically, at constant acceleration, that is when you can use the equations of motion. Basically, when a is constant, when the acceleration is constant, that's only when you can use the equations of motion. Now the question is, how do you know what would make the acceleration to be constant? The only thing, according to this equation, F is equals to ma. Remember that the mass is constant, it never changes. Even if the object moves like this, even if the object moves like this, even if the object jumps, even if the object does whatever that it does, but make sure that you know that the mass never changes of the object. But the only thing that can make the acceleration to be constant is if we are applying a constant force. So basically, if I apply a constant force to an object, assume that I'm applying an equal force to this object, it will have a constant acceleration as well. So basically, this means that this is happening under a constant force. That's why we say that this is a rectilinear motion under a constant force. Now we want to derive our equations of motion using these quantities. So now I'm going to say that basically you need to remember that the acceleration, we say that instead of writing acceleration A, we are going to write it as what? As the derivative of the velocity with respect to time. Okay, now I'm applying the notation. Look at this. The acceleration is equals to the derivative of velocity, guys. X with a dot on top, it is the velocity. X with a dot on top, this is the velocity. This is the velocity. Don't mistake this for the position. Position is x, then x with a dot is the velocity. So here, this is the derivative of the velocity with respect to time. Okay, so now that we have this, we can be able to solve our first equation of motion. How can we solve our first equation of motion? Using this notation whereby the acceleration is constant. So basically, here we can say that this dt, we can multiply it, we can cross multiply this dt, meaning that if I multiply dt multiplied by a, this is going to give me a dt. So dt multiplied by a will give me a dt is equal to dx dot. Okay, so basically we just cross multiply the differential so that we can be able to integrate. Remember, we cannot integrate if we're having two differentials that are making a fraction or a ratio of two differentials. So you need to cross multiply it. And when you cross multiply, that's when you can integrate on both sides of the equal sign. So you integrate on both sides of the equal sign. Let's remind each other which quantities we have here. On this side, which is the left hand side, we're having acceleration dt. This is the differential. The differential, it is telling you the change in something. Guys, when you see the d, the delta, this is the small letter delta. The capital letter delta is like this, then the small letter delta is like this. So when you see dt like this, it means this is the smaller change in time as this object is moving. So here, our bounds for the integral, it must consist of what? Remember, the lower bound, it is the initial quantity. So whenever you see the lower bound here, it gives you the initial of that thing. Then the upper bound, it gives you the final of that particular thing. So in this case, since our differential here, it is dt, it means we are going to use the bounds of time. This is the change in time. This is the acceleration times change in time. So since we're having acceleration times change in time here, the time changes from an initial time to a final time. Most of the times we always set our initial time to be 0. So the acceleration here is changing from 0 to what? To a time t. Okay, so those are our bounds for the integral. The bounds for the integral represent this in physics. These are not bounds just for jokes or something like that. The bounds are used to represent the initial and the final quantities. Okay, so when we are having the differential, let's look on the other side, which is at the right hand side of the equation. At the right hand side of the equation, guys, we're having a differential. This is the differential, meaning the change in something. Change in what, guys? Here we say that x dot, it represents the velocity. So this is the change in velocity. So change in velocity must have the bounds of velocity. So you cannot give me something like a initial time or something like this here. We need the change in velocity. So velocity can only change. Velocity can only change from a certain initial velocity to a certain final velocity. So in this case, most of the times we pick our initial velocity, we say it is vi, and we pick our final velocity, we say it is vf. That's what we usually use. Or you can use v naught for the initial velocity, and you're going to use v for the final velocity. So here, these are the bounds for velocity, because this x dot here, the one that is being integrated on, this is the differential. We integrate on the differential. Here we are integrating, or we are adding up on the velocity. This is the velocity. Okay, so if we do the integration here, remember we said that this is all happening at a constant force and a constant acceleration. So this is a rectilinear motion at a constant force and at a constant acceleration. This means that this acceleration will not change as time changes. So I can take it out of the integral and say this is a into the integral from 0 to t of dt is equals to. And here you can see that we are only integrating dx dot. So this will give me x dot, and the bounds for the integral are still v naught and v. Now we just need to do integration here. This is just simple integration, nothing much about it. If you integrate dt, you are going to get t. So this is going to be a times t. Remember, the initial bound here is 0, so basically it don't make any difference. You guys know how to integrate from your first year, so it's quite easier here. So this is at is equals to, when we integrate this, already integrated it, we just substitute the bounds, right? So the upper bound first, which is v, minus the lower bound, which is what? V naught. And from here we can be able to get our first equation of motion by transposing, or by taking this v naught on the other side, and okay, we can just take a negative v naught on the other side, it becomes positive. So this is going to give me at plus v naught is equals to v. This is the equation of motion, so we can just write it as equation of motion number 1, and we are going to say that v is equals to v naught plus 80. So we have done this integration to be able to derive the equation of motion at a constant acceleration. That's why we always say that you can only use the equations of motion provided that the acceleration is constant. You cannot use it when the acceleration is changing. You can only use these when the acceleration is constant. And we've just proved that at a constant acceleration, the final velocity is equal to the initial velocity plus acceleration times the time. So now that we've integrated the first equation, we need to integrate the other one. We are not deriving them, we're integrating the equations in this case. So let's now integrate the second equation of motion. So remember that here, this old equation of motion, it is given by V is equal to V naught plus 80. So this is V is equals to V naught plus 80. So having V is equals to V naught plus 80, we need to do some bit of recognition here. Remember that V represents the velocity, right? And we still remember that the velocity is the first derivative of position. So instead of writing V, I can write this as dx dt. Remember basically that this is the notation that we use so that we can represent everything with respect to the original reference frame, which is the x-axis. So everything must have x in it. So basically, instead of writing V, I can write dx dt, because basically V is the speed or the velocity. Okay, yeah, speed or velocity without looking at direction. Basically, this speed or velocity is dx over dt. So instead of writing V, I can just write this as dx over dt is equals to V naught plus 80. And then from here, I can be able to integrate my second equation of motion. How can I do that? Basically, I can multiply this differential dt, cross multiply it. Why do I have to cross multiply it? Because I cannot just come and integrate here, guys. I cannot just say I'm integrating a ratio of differential. That does not exist in the mathematical world. You need to always make sure that you get rid of this dt in such a way, in some way, using mathematical principles. Okay, you cannot just put the integral symbols because you want to solve the problem. No, you don't just do what you want here. You follow the principles of mathematics. Get rid of this dt by maybe cross multiplying it. So I can have something like dx is equals to, if I cross multiply, this will be dt multiplied by v naught. So this will be v naught dt plus this will be dt multiplied by 80. This will be 80 dt. Yes, it's mathematically correct. Yeah, maybe you can just say dt multiplied by the entire thing, then you distribute the dt. Still going to give you the same thing. But we've been able to cross multiply it such that we only remain with one differential on each side. You guys know calculus, you already know that you must have only one differential so that you can integrate. And then from here, now you can now apply your integral symbol wherever you have a differential. So this is the differential dx, this is the differential dt, this is the differential dt. You integrate on all three sides. And then when you integrate on all three sides, remember again, now we are bringing the application more than the mathematics. When we have dx, what does it mean in physics terms? In physics terms, dx means the change, the small change in position. So we are changing position here. We are changing it from an initial position. We are going to a final position. Most of the times, okay, but here we are changing from an initial position and we are going to a certain final position. So there's a change in position from initial to a final. What tells us that there's a change in position? It is this d here. Don't underestimate the power of a smaller d. The smaller delta, it means that you are changing some quantity. In this case, you are changing what? You are changing x, which is the position. So the bounds that you must have, they must move from an initial position to a final position. I repeat again for the last time, guys. The bounds of an integral are not just numbers that you play with when you are bored. The bounds of an integral they tell you the initial and the final state of an object in a certain quantity. You just need to look at what I'm talking about. In this case, you're talking about the position because there's a dx. Guys, you see x here, this is dx. So this dx is telling me that this is the change in position. So the initial position must be the lower bound. The upper bound must be the final position. Don't put the bounds of time here because this is the change in position. Moving to this is the change in time, dt. So this must move from an initial time. And we said we're going to set our initial time to be 0, our final time to be t. So basically the bounds of an integral in physics terms, they are not just numbers. The bounds of an integral in physics terms, they tell you the state initially, then the state finally. The lower bound is initial, the upper bound is final, and this d, it tells you of the change. So in this case, we're also having dt, so it means we are moving from 0 and we are going to t. So dt, the change in time from initial time of 0 to a final time of t. Now you do the integration. When you integrate dx, you are going to get x, and the bounds of that integration are going to be the x initial and the x final, which will be equal to what? Now when you integrate dt, this v naught, the v naught, remember, it is the initial velocity that we found at first, and the initial velocity is more like it's constant, right? It's not really changing, right? But if you take out the v naught as a constant and you integrate dt, you're going to get t. So you integrate dt, you're going to get just t. Obviously the bounds is from 0 to t, but this 0 will, the bounds will just make it the same thing as v naught times t. And then when you integrate here, we say that the acceleration is constant, so we can say the acceleration is constant, fine. And then we still have got this t. So we take out acceleration as a constant, right? But we still have got this t. When you integrate t dt, t cannot be constant here, guys, because we're integrating it, right? So when you integrate t dt, you need to remember one of your techniques of integration. One of the techniques says here, if I have got t to the power of 1, to integrate it, I can just oppose the power rule. I can just add 1 to the exponent, and I can divide by the new exponent 1 plus 1. So this is just going to give me 1 over 2 t squared. When I integrate this is going to give me 1 over 2 t squared. So this is going to give me, you can say t squared over 2, and then the bounds are from 0 to t. So if you just substitute the bounds there, this is just going to give you the same thing. So this will be, substitute the upper bound, this is going to be final position, which is the upper bound, minus initial position, which is the lower bound, is equal to, now you look at the velocity here, where there is t, that's when you can substitute the upper bound to be t, then the lower bound to be 0. So do you realize that the lower bound won't really have an effect? So this is going to give you v naught times t plus, when you substitute the upper bound here to be t and the lower bound to be 0, 0 squared over 2 just give you 0. So the lower bound won't have any effect as long as the upper bound is 0 for this case. You know integration, guys, so it's way easier for you. So you put here, this is just going to give you, what? 1 over 2 e t squared. And guess what? Look at this. This is final position minus initial position. So final position minus initial position. What does that tell you? You are changing position. That's the change in position. Because I mean, like, final position minus initial position is the change in position, which is otherwise known as the displacement of an object. So that's the displacement. So the displacement, we use the symbol delta x to represent it, and we use a capital letter delta x, the bigger delta, the triangular delta, not the smaller d. This smaller d, it's a smaller change in position. This capital letter triangle, which is the delta, this is the capital letter delta, this one is the smaller one, this is a bigger displacement change. So this is the second equation of motion that we have been able to integrate using rectilinear motion under a constant force. So thank you so much for watching this wonderful video, physics students. Now next video we will be continuing and doing momentum and all other derivations. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends also